Captain Grax of the Korthak Empire stood on the bridge of his warship, the Bone Crusher, admiring his reflection in the polished metal console, 7 feet of pure muscle, chitinous armor plating, and enough natural weaponry to make a death squad jealous. His species had earned their reputation the hard way, by conquering everything that moved and most things that didn't. Captain, his tactical officer Vex announced, her forearms dancing across the weapon controls with practiced efficiency. We're approaching the target system. Primitive radio transmissions confirmed. This should be laughably easy. Grax's mandibles clicked in what passed for a grin among the Korthak. Excellent. Mark it down, crew. In approximately 2 standard cycles, we'll have added planet number 848 to our glorious empire. Science Officer Nix looked up from his scanner array, all 6 of his compound eyes gleaming with anticipation. Captain, the electromagnetic readings suggest they're still using crude chemical propulsion and basic nuclear technology. I'm detecting something they call reality television broadcasting across multiple frequencies. Clearly a primitive entertainment system. Reality television, Grax's laugh rumbled through the bridge like an avalanche. These creatures are even more pathetic than the blob dwellers of Zeta Prime. At least those gelatinous fools put up a decent fight before we absorbed their entire civilization. Vex pulled up the tactical display, showing a small blue-green planet orbiting a yellow star. Standard conquest protocol, Captain. Orbital bombardment followed by ground invasion. Oh no, my dear Vex, Grax said, cracking his knuckles with sounds like breaking bone. This one looks too entertaining to simply vaporize. I want to see the fear in their optical sensors when they realize they're facing the apex predators of the galaxy. We'll land directly on their surface and give them the full Korthak experience. The bridge crew erupted in what could generously be called laughter but sounded more like a pack of hyenas having an argument with a garbage disposal. They'd done this dance 847 times before. Some species tried to fight, some tried to hide, some tried to negotiate. All of them ended up as footnotes in Korthak military archives. Sir, Nix reported, still monitoring the transmissions, I'm picking up something called Monday Night Football, and what appears to be a documentary series about something called Florida Man. Should I analyze these for strategic intelligence? Don't waste processing power on their primitive entertainment, Grax dismissed with a wave of his clawed hand. The only strategy we need is overwhelming superiority. We are Korthak. We are the storm that devours worlds. We are the nightmare that lesser species whisper about in their pathetic sleeping chambers. As the Bone Crusher entered Earth's solar system, passing by what the locals called Mars, Grax couldn't help but feel a twinge of almost disappointment. After 847 conquests, the thrill was starting to wear thin. Maybe these humans would at least provide some amusing entertainment before inevitable submission. Prepare landing protocols, he commanded. And someone polish my ceremonial war spikes. I want to look properly terrifying when we announce their doom. The crew busied themselves with pre-conquest preparations, completely unaware that their communications had been monitored, analyzed and forwarded to a small office building in Houston, Texas, where a middle-aged man named Jake Martinez was just finishing his 3rd cup of coffee and wondering if he should order donuts for the meeting. The Bone Crusher descended through Earth's atmosphere with all the subtlety of a meteor strike, its hull glowing from atmospheric entry as it touched down in what Grax assumed would be a suitably dramatic landing in the middle of some primitive settlement. Instead, they found themselves on a perfectly maintained concrete pad surrounded by orange traffic cones and a sign that read Alien Landing Zone Alpha Miss, please check in at Building 7. What in the 7 hells of Mortalk is this? Grax muttered, staring at the welcoming committee through his view screen. Instead of screaming primitives fleeing in terror, there was a single human standing next to a folding table with what appeared to be refreshments and a clipboard. The human waved cheerfully at their ship. Captain, Vex said, her voice uncertain for the first time in decades. Tactical scanners show no defensive positions, no military presence, no signs of panic or evacuation. There's just one guy with what looks like pastries. Jake Martinez straightened his NASA windbreaker and checked his watch. Right on time. He'd been tracking the Korthak ship since it passed Jupiter, and honestly their approach vector was textbook stuff. Decent piloting, though they could work on their atmospheric entry angle. He grabbed his thermos and walked toward the ship as its landing ramp extended with an impressively theatrical hiss of hydraulics. Greetings, primitive inhabitants of this insignificant mudball. Grax's voice boomed across the landing pad as he strode down the ramp, his massive frame casting an intimidating shadow. I am Captain Grax of the mighty Korthak Empire. Your world is now under our dominion. Surrender immediately or face the consequences of defying the apex predators of the galaxy. Jake took a sip of coffee and consulted his clipboard. Oh hey there, Captain Grax. Jake Martinez, NASA Interspecies Relations. Welcome to Earth. Coffee. I've got glazed donuts, chocolate frosted, and I think there's a Boston cream left. The silence stretched for a solid 15 seconds as Grax's brain tried to process this response. His tactical officer Vex emerged from the ship behind him, weapons ready, only to be offered a napkin. What? Grax managed. Sorry, should have been clearer, Jake said, extending a steaming cup. We've been tracking your approach since you passed the outer solar system. Great fuel efficiency on that ship, by the way. What are you getting? Maybe 47,000 kilometers per unit of antimatter. Not bad for a vessel that size. Nick scuttled down the ramp, his compound eyes swiveling frantically as he tried to make sense of the readings on his scanner. Captain, I'm detecting no signs of fear, elevated stress hormones, or panic responses. This human's cardiovascular system is completely calm. It's almost like he was expecting us. Of course I was expecting you, Jake laughed, passing out donuts. Traffic control tagged your ship 3 weeks ago. We've been preparing for your arrival. Hope you don't mind the welcoming committee being a bit small, but frankly most of the team is at lunch. Tuesday is taco day in the cafeteria. Grax's mandibles worked silently as he tried to regain control of the situation. You dare mock the Korthak Empire. We have conquered 847 worlds. We are the terror of the cosmos. Oh wow, 847. That's impressive, Jake said, genuinely interested. Must keep you guys busy. How's the administrative side of that? I imagine the paperwork alone would be a nightmare. Vex looked at her captain, then at Jake, then at the donut in her upper left hand. Are we being conquered by pastries? Look, I know this is probably different from your usual routine, Jake continued, completely oblivious to the existential crisis he was causing, but we figured we'd try the hospitality approach first. Gets better results than all that screaming and running around. Plus I've got to say you folks picked a great time to visit. Weather's been beautiful, and we're right in the middle of baseball season. Grax attempted to salvage his dignity and reassert dominance. Enough of this mockery. We demand immediate submission of your species, or we will demonstrate the true power of the Korthak military. Oh absolutely, we'll get to all that formal stuff, Jake said, waving dismissively. But first you've got to experience authentic Earth culture. I mean, you can't conquer a planet without understanding what you're getting, right? That would just be unprofessional. Before anyone could object, Jake had herded the bewildered aliens into a van marked NASA Tours and was driving them through downtown Houston during rush hour. The Korthak warriors bred for combat across 1,000 worlds found themselves clutching their seats in terror as Jake casually merged into 5 lanes of traffic while texting someone about dinner plans. So this is our standard transportation system, Jake explained cheerfully as a motorcycle weaved between cars at 80 miles per hour, its rider wearing nothing but shorts and a tank top. Pretty efficient really. We only lose about 40,000 people a year to traffic accidents. Totally acceptable losses. Nix's scanner was beeping frantically. Captain, these vehicles are traveling at lethal speeds with no protective barriers, operated by individuals with no apparent military training or safety protocols. This is madness. Oh, you should see the Autobahn. Jake laughed. Germans really know how to live dangerously. Speaking of which, first stop extreme sports. The next 2 hours became a blur of human activities that systematically shattered the Korthak worldview. At the rock climbing gym, they watched 12-year-old children casually ascending vertical walls that would challenge their best soldiers. Jake introduced them to Emma, a grandmother who free-climbed mountains for fun, and showed them photos of her latest adventure, base jumping off a Norwegian cliff in a wingsuit. It's all about the adrenaline rush, Emma explained to the increasingly pale aliens. I started when I turned 60. Figured retirement was the perfect time to try something new. Vex whispered to her captain, Sir, this elderly human regularly launches herself off geological formations for entertainment. What kind of Deathworld produces recreational suicide? The food tour was worse. Jake took them to a local restaurant where humans were voluntarily consuming something called Ghost Pepper Challenge wings, while laughing and crying simultaneously. The Korthak watched in horror as a teenager not only ate the wings but asked for extra sauce. My nephew Tommy here holds the local record, Jake said proudly as the kid demolished another wing. 15 ghost peppers in one sitting. Kid's got natural talent. Nix ran a discreet scan on the peppers and nearly dropped his scanner. Captain, the chemical compound in these food items would be classified as a biological weapon by Galactic standards. These humans are consuming military-grade chemical irritants for pleasure. The horror movie marathon was the final straw. Jake had taken them to a drive-in theater showing a triple feature, Saw, The Exorcist, and Paranormal Activity. The Korthak warriors who had slaughtered their way across the galaxy sat trembling in the van as humans around them munched popcorn and laughed at scenes of torture and supernatural terror. This is considered entertainment? Grax asked weakly as a character on screen was subjected to elaborate torture devices. Oh yeah, horror movies are huge here, Jake said, completely missing the irony. We love a good scare. Really gets the blood pumping. Some people watch these things to relax after work. The final insult came when Jake showed them social media. He handed Vex his phone and let her scroll through the comments section of a political post. Within 30 seconds she was staring at the screen in absolute shock. They attack each other with words designed to cause maximum psychological damage, she whispered. And they do this voluntarily. For no military or strategic purpose, they just choose to be cruel to strangers. Yeah, the internet can get pretty wild, Jake agreed. That's actually a pretty tame thread. You should see what happens during election season. We had one guy get so worked up about pineapple on pizza that he drove 600 miles to argue with someone in person. By the time they returned to the landing site, the mighty Korthak warriors looked like they'd been through a psychological meat grinder. They stumbled out of the van, their earlier confidence completely evaporated, replaced by a growing horror at what they'd encountered. So Jake said brightly, ready to talk about that whole conquest thing now. Back at the landing pad, Nix was hunched over his scanner array, running increasingly frantic diagnostic checks. The readings couldn't be right. They simply couldn't be. His equipment had to be malfunctioning, because what he was seeing would mean that everything the Korthak Empire believed about warfare, survival, and galactic dominance was fundamentally wrong. Captain, Nix said, his voice barely above a whisper, I need to show you something. These readings, they're impossible. Grax stumbled over, still trying to process the cultural nightmare he'd just experienced. What is it, Nix? Please tell me you found their military weakness or discovered they're all insane. Sir, I've been running continuous environmental scans since we landed. The gravity here is crushing. We're operating at 1.6 times standard galactic norm. That human grandmother who throws herself off cliffs. She's been living her entire life under gravitational stress that would cripple most species. Vex looked up from where she'd been staring at Jake's phone in horror. That explains why they're so physically robust. But surely the atmosphere. 21% oxygen, Nix continued, his voice rising with panic. 21%. Do you understand what that means? This atmosphere is a fire hazard. One spark and entire continents could ignite, and they're just breathing it like it's normal. We're currently standing in what most civilized worlds would classify as an industrial accident. Jake wandered over, sipping his fourth cup of coffee. Hey, you guys okay? You look a little pale. Well, paler. Is that possible with your skin tone? Mr. Martinez, Grax said carefully. Your planet's oxygen levels, aren't they dangerous? Jake laughed. Dangerous? Nah, we need it to live. Though I guess it does make everything more flammable. One time my buddy Carl lit a barbecue wrong and singed off his eyebrows. Good times. Nix was frantically cross-referencing his databases. Captain, the atmospheric composition, the gravity, the radiation levels from their star. This isn't a habitable world. This is a Class 12 Deathworld. The most extreme category in our classification system. Deathworld. Jake perked up with interest. Oh, you mean like those planets from the sci-fi movies? Yeah, I guess Earth's pretty hardcore. We've got volcanoes, earthquakes, hurricanes, tornadoes, floods, droughts, ice ages, and that's just the weather. Don't get me started on the wildlife. Wildlife? Vex asked weakly. Oh man, where do I even begin? Jake's eyes lit up. We've got bears that can crack open cars like soda cans, sharks that have been perfecting the art of murder for 400 million years, hippos that kill more people than wars, jellyfish that can stop your heart with a touch, spiders the size of dinner plates, snakes that can swallow a whole deer, and those are just the easy ones. Nix's scanner was now emitting a constant alarm tone. Sir, he's not exaggerating. I'm detecting thousands of species that would be classified as apex predators on any other world. The biological diversity here is weaponized. Everything is either poisonous, venomous, has crushing bite force, or has evolved specialized killing techniques. But surely, Grax said desperately, your species must live in protected habitats, away from these creatures. Jake scratched his head. Well, not really. I mean, we share the planet with them. My neighbor Bob has a pool in his backyard, and last month an alligator just moved in. Bob named him Gerald, and they've reached an understanding. Gerald gets the pool during the day, Bob gets it at night. An understanding, Vex repeated flatly. With an apex predator. Gerald's actually pretty chill once you get to know him. Though Bob did have to install a stronger pool cover after Gerald figured out how to open the old one. Nix was now frantically scanning Jake himself. Captain, the human's bone density is off the charts. Muscle fiber composition designed for explosive power. Cardiovascular system that can operate under extreme stress for extended periods. They're built like biological weapons. Oh, and the diseases, Jake continued cheerfully. We've got some real classics. Ebola, plague, malaria, dengue fever, flesh-eating bacteria. Most of them would wipe out entire populations on other worlds, but we've just learned to live with them. Modern medicine, you know. Though we do lose a few 100,000 people a year to the flu. The flu? Grax asked. Yeah, it's like a minor respiratory infection. Mostly kills the elderly and people with compromised immune systems. Pretty standard stuff. Nothing like the old days when smallpox was wiping out whole continents. Nix's compound eyes were spinning wildly as he processed this information. Captain, they're describing Category 5 pandemic scenarios as minor inconveniences. Their immune systems are fighting off biological agents that would sterilize most inhabited worlds. But surely, Vex tried one more time, your planet must be considered unusually harsh by your own standards. Jake looked genuinely confused. Earth? Harsh? Nah, Earth's actually pretty nice. We call it a Goldilocks planet because it's just right for life. Not too hot, not too cold. Sure, we've got some rough neighborhoods. Death Valley, the Australian outback, Siberia, the deep ocean trenches, but overall it's pretty comfortable. Comfortable, Grax repeated. Yeah, I mean we've got breathable air, drinkable water, edible plants, and the gravity's not too bad. I heard Mars has like 38% Earth gravity. Can you imagine trying to play basketball in that? You'd be bouncing all over the place. Nix looked up from his scanner, his face a mask of existential terror. Captain, I've cross-referenced their comfortable planet with our databases. Earth doesn't just qualify as a death world, it's the most extreme death world we've ever encountered. It's literally off our charts. The classification system doesn't go high enough. Jake nodded thoughtfully. That's probably why we're so good at space exploration. Once you've survived Earth, the rest of the universe seems pretty manageable. That's when the cavalry arrived. Though Jake would later insist he'd only called for a few colleagues to help with the cultural exchange. The first vehicle to pull up was a dust-covered jeep with government plates, from which emerged a woman who made the Korthak warriors look delicate by comparison. Sorry I'm late, Jake, said Marine Colonel Rita Stone, adjusting her sunglasses and extending a hand that could probably crush walnuts. Traffic was murder on I-45. You must be our visitors from the Korthak Empire. Rita Stone, United States Marine Corps. Pleasure to meet you. Grax stared at the offered hand like it was a live grenade. Rita Stone stood maybe 5'6", but there was something in her posture, her movement, the casual way she surveyed their ship, that made every combat instinct the Korthak possessed scream warnings. She carried herself like a predator who'd never met anything she couldn't kill. Colonel Stone just got back from a deployment, Jake explained helpfully. What was it this time, Rita? Counter-terrorism in the Middle East. Arctic survival training, actually. Rita replied, still waiting for Grax to shake her hand. 3 weeks in northern Alaska, -40 degrees, living off the land. Lost 15 pounds but gained some great stories. Did you know polar bears can smell you from 20 miles away? Makes for interesting camping. Nix's scanner was going haywire again. Captain, her muscle density is incredible. Bone structure suggests she's survived multiple high-impact traumas. Scar tissue indicates regular exposure to violence. This human is a professional killer. Oh, Rita's one of our best, Jake said proudly. Tell them about Fallujah. Maybe later, Rita smiled, and the Korthak warriors took an involuntary step backward. Her smile was the kind that suggested she knew exactly how to dismantle someone in 17 different ways and was currently deciding which one would be most educational. The second vehicle was a Tesla that pulled up silently, its driver emerging with the kind of casual confidence that only came from understanding forces that could vaporize planets. Dr. Alex Kim adjusted his MIT hoodie and grabbed a tablet from his back seat. Jake, good to see you. Sorry about the delay, had to stop by the lab to check on our antimatter containment experiment. We're up to storing about 12 grams now, which should be enough to power the eastern seaboard for a week. Or level a small city if we mess up the magnetic bottles. Vex grabbed her captain's arm. Sir, did he just say they're experimenting with antimatter? As a casual research project? Oh yeah, Alex is brilliant, Jake said. PhD in theoretical physics from MIT, another one in applied nuclear engineering from Caltech. How many languages do you speak now, Alex? 7 fluently, can get by in another dozen, Alex replied, scrolling through data on his tablet. Been working on Mandarin and Arabic lately. Helps when collaborating with international research teams on the fusion reactor project. Fusion reactors, Grax whispered. They've weaponized stellar energy. Well, we're trying to make it safe for civilian power generation. Alex corrected. Though I suppose if you really wanted to weaponize it, the principles are pretty straightforward. But why would you? We've got plenty of conventional weapons that are more efficient. Before anyone could process that terrifying statement, the third arrival made everything worse. A modified motorcycle roared into the parking area, and off it stepped what could only be described as controlled chaos in human form. Danny Daredevil Thompson removed his helmet, revealing the kind of grin that suggested he regularly laughed in the face of physics. Yo, Jake, sorry I'm late, man. Had to finish up a photo shoot for Red Bull. We were testing the new wingsuit design by jumping out of a helicopter at 15,000 feet. Want to see the footage? Danny pulled out his phone and started showing video of himself literally throwing his body out of aircraft and somehow not dying. The Korthak watched in fascinated horror as this human being treated terminal velocity like a recreational activity. That's Danny, Jake explained. He holds about 47 world records in extreme sports. Wingsuit flying, base jumping, free climbing, deep sea diving, volcano surfing. If it can kill you, Danny's probably figured out how to do it for fun. Volcano surfing. Nick squeaked. Oh dude, you've never lived until you've snowboarded down an active lava flow, Danny said enthusiastically. The trick is timing the gas releases and keeping your speed up so the board doesn't melt. Lost 3 boards before I figured out the right technique. Rita was studying the aliens with professional interest. So these are the folks who think they're apex predators. They seem a little jumpy. Well, they're from a more civilized part of the galaxy, Jake explained diplomatically. Different survival pressures. Ah, Alex nodded understandingly. Makes sense. Most inhabited worlds probably don't require their inhabitants to develop quite our level of adaptive resilience. What's the gravity like on your homeworld? 0.87 standard, Vex answered automatically, then immediately regretted providing tactical information. Lightweight, Danny laughed. No wonder you guys seem so fragile. You're basically living in reduced gravity your whole lives. Must be like living on the moon. Rita was walking around their ship now, her professional eye cataloging weaknesses with terrifying efficiency. Interesting design. Looks like it prioritizes intimidation over functionality. These weapon systems seem overly complex, probably jam up in real combat conditions. And this armor plating, pretty, but I bet a good old-fashioned armor-piercing round would punch right through. You're analyzing our military vessel, Grax said weakly. Force of habit, Rita shrugged. Don't worry, I'm not planning to attack it. Unless you're planning to attack us, of course. Then all bets are off. Alex was scanning their ship with what looked like a civilian tablet. Fascinating propulsion system. Antimatter annihilation drive, but it's incredibly inefficient. You're losing about 60% of your energy to waste heat. And your shielding technology is at least 50 years behind our current research. No wonder you need such a big ship to achieve interstellar travel. How are you scanning our classified military technology with a consumer device? Vex demanded. Oh this, Alex held up his tablet. I modified it with some sensors from our Mars rover project. Nothing fancy. Though I suppose if you consider this classified tech, you probably wouldn't want to see what we keep in our actual military research facilities. The 3 humans stood there, casually discussing the technical inadequacies of a starship that had conquered 847 worlds, while simultaneously demonstrating why Earth was the most dangerous planet any of the Korthak had ever encountered. Rita exuded lethal competence. Alex possessed the kind of intelligence that could turn theoretical physics into practical weapons, and Danny treated activities that would kill most galactic citizens as weekend hobbies. And they were just 3 random humans Jake had called for a casual meet and greet. So Jake said cheerfully, now that you've met some of the locals, shall we discuss the logistics of your stay on Earth? Captain Grax felt what he could only describe as the last vestiges of his warrior pride crumbling into cosmic dust. The mighty Korthak Empire, conquerors of 847 worlds, scourge of the galaxy, had somehow managed to pick a fight with the most lethally adapted species in known space. And worse, these humans seemed to think it was all perfectly normal. Stay on Earth? He managed to croak. Well, naturally, Jake said, pulling out his clipboard again. I mean, you can't just pop by for a conquest and then leave without experiencing proper Earth hospitality. We've got a whole program set up for visiting dignitaries like yourselves. Rita was still circling their ship like a shark evaluating prey. Nice craftsmanship on the hull plating. Shame about the tactical vulnerabilities. But I'm sure our engineering core could help you upgrade those weak points. Purely in the spirit of interspecies cooperation, of course. You want to help upgrade our warship? Vex asked incredulously. Sure, Danny chimed in. We love helping people improve their extreme sports equipment. And let's be honest, space travel is just extreme sports on a galactic scale. I bet we could modify your engines for better atmospheric entry, maybe add some heat-resistant coating for those volcano planet landings. Alex was taking notes on his tablet. The antimatter containment system is particularly interesting. Very conservative design philosophy. We could probably boost your efficiency by about 200% with some basic modifications. Nothing fancy, just some techniques we developed for our Deep Space Probe program. Deep Space Probes. Nix whispered to his captain. Sir, if their civilian research program is more advanced than our military technology. I know, Grax whispered back. I know. Jake was flipping through pages on his clipboard. Now, according to Protocol 7 of the Interstellar Visitation Guidelines. Yes, we have guidelines. We're very organized. Any species that travels this far to visit Earth is automatically enrolled in our alien protection program. Protection program? Grax asked, though he was beginning to suspect he really didn't want to know. Absolutely. See, the thing is, once word gets out that you've been to Earth, well, other species might get the wrong idea about humans. They might think we're some kind of threat or something ridiculous like that. Jake's laugh was so genuine and innocent, that it was somehow more terrifying than any weapon the Korthak possessed. Rita nodded sagely. Can't have the galaxy getting all worked up over nothing. Bad for interstellar relations. So we've developed this comprehensive program to help visiting alien dignitaries integrate safely back into galactic society, Jake continued. Full diplomatic immunity, cultural exchange programs, and most importantly, a carefully crafted narrative about your visit that protects everyone involved. Alex held up his tablet, which now displayed what looked like an official document. We've already drafted your official report. It describes Earth as a primitive but culturally fascinating world, with surprisingly robust defensive capabilities. Nothing threatening, just enough to discourage casual invasion attempts. Defensive capabilities? Grax asked weakly. Well, we can't have every Tom, Dick and Harry thinking Earth is a pushover. Danny explained reasonably. That would just encourage more visits, and honestly we're pretty busy with our own stuff. Exploring Mars, developing faster than light travel, figuring out that whole quantum computing thing. You're developing faster than light travel. Vex's voice had reached a pitch that was painful to Korthak ears. Oh sure, couple different approaches, Alex said casually. There's the Alcubierre drive concept. Quantum entanglement communication. Wormhole manipulation. Basic theoretical physics stuff. Should have working prototypes within the decade. Jake was still reading from his clipboard. Now, as part of the Alien Protection Program, you'll be staying on Earth as our honored guests while we prepare your integration materials. We've got a lovely facility set up in Colorado, great mountain air, fantastic skiing, and completely secure from any misunderstandings that might arise from other species getting the wrong impression about your visit here. You're imprisoning us, Grax realized. Protecting you, Jake corrected gently. Big difference. You'll have full access to recreational facilities, educational programs and cultural activities. Rita's volunteered to give you some basic survival training, so you can handle Earth's environment better. Alex is going to help upgrade your technology so you don't look quite so primitive when you get home. And Danny's promised to teach you some extreme sports basics. I'm thinking we start with bungee jumping, Danny said enthusiastically. Really builds confidence before we move on to the advanced stuff like volcano surfing. Rita was examining her fingernails, with the kind of casual attention that suggested she was calculating exactly how much pressure it would take to snap alien bones. Of course, if you'd prefer to leave immediately, and tell the galaxy that Earth is populated by friendly, harmless primitives, that's completely your choice. Totally your call, Alex agreed. Though I should mention that our deep space monitoring network will be keeping track of any unusual activities in nearby star systems, just to make sure everyone stays safe and peaceful. Deep Space Monitoring Network. Nix squeaked. Oh yeah, we've got sensors scattered all over the local galactic arm, Jake said proudly. Part of our asteroid defense program. Can't be too careful about space rocks, you know. Though the system works just as well for tracking starships. The three humans stood there smiling at the aliens with the kind of warm, genuine friendliness that somehow managed to be more intimidating than any threat the Korthak had ever faced. They were trapped, and everyone knew it, but it was being presented as hospitality. So Jake said, clicking his pen and looking expectantly at Captain Grax, "Shall we get you folks checked into your new accommodations? I think you're really going to love it here on Earth. Most of our guests end up extending their stay indefinitely." Grax looked at his crew, at the humans, at their ship which now seemed laughably inadequate, and at the clipboard that Jake was holding like it contained the most natural thing in the universe. Somewhere in the back of his mind, he could hear the sound of 847 conquered worlds laughing at the mighty Korthak Empire. "The Colorado facility," he said finally. "Does it have adequate recreational activities?" "Oh, absolutely," Jake beamed. "We've got hiking, rock climbing, whitewater rafting, skiing, mountain biking, and Danny's working on setting up a wingsuit course. You're going to love it." As the Korthak warriors were gently but firmly escorted to what was definitely not a prison but absolutely was not freedom, Grax couldn't help but wonder how many other honored guests Earth was currently protecting in their alien sanctuary program. He had a sinking feeling that the Korthak Empire's reign of terror across the galaxy had just come to an abrupt and embarrassingly permanent end. And somehow, the humans had managed to make it seem like they were doing them a favor. Jake made a final note on his clipboard and smiled. "Welcome to Earth, folks. We think you're really going to enjoy your stay."